A lot of pain that you feel comes from the false stories that you're telling yourself. Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com, where I help good men stop reacting from fear and start leading with emotional strength and grounded truth. Today, I want to talk about false core beliefs. I've talked about this a lot in previous podcasts. It affects everything. It's how you respond to your wife. It's how you interpret conflict. It's why you feel like you're never enough subconsciously, no matter how hard you try. These are stories that you tell yourself, and they're deep-rooted. Again, they're subconscious. It's not something in your head that you think about. They're buried, and they pop up whether you realize it or not. But you carry these beliefs about yourself, and we've talked about this before. They're planted way back in childhood. So if you have these subconscious beliefs driving your marriage, driving your life, that say, I have to earn love. I'm not enough. If I mess up, I'll be rejected. My needs don't matter. I'm a burden. I'm only valuable when I perform. All these stories that we tell ourselves subconsciously, they drive our behaviors. They drive how we react. They drive our feelings. They drive our responses. But what happens when these beliefs go unchallenged? They become the lens through which you see your life, your marriage, your wife's behavior, your self-worth, everything. So it's really important to understand what false core beliefs are and where they come from, and just how these beliefs silently sabotage your relationship and other areas in life, your career, friendships, parenting, family. These beliefs can silently sabotage any relationship. So you hear me say false core beliefs. What are these? Well, it's a deep-rooted story that you believe about yourself, and you don't realize that it's running the show. It's not really a thought. It's not even really a passing emotion. It's a conviction that you carry about your value, about your identity, your worth. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't even realize that they're there. We're not consciously saying things like, I'm not enough, or I'm not wanted, or I'll always be abandoned, or if I share how I feel, I'll be ashamed, I'm too much. Those things are happening deep under the surface. And those usually form in your childhood. They're not based on truth. They're based on interpretation, and they stem from coping mechanisms that you had when you were younger. So if you had a father who was emotionally absent, and you may have concluded that I'm not important. Maybe you had a mom who was overwhelming or unavailable, and you decided subconsciously, again, without thinking this, but deep inside your core, in your heart, my needs are a burden. If you were maybe teased for being sensitive or different, you might have internalized something's wrong with me. Whatever the event was, it was real. But the meaning that you gave it, that's the false belief. That's the false core belief in there. And you learned that when you were younger, and it's become a script that you live by as an adult. So let's look at it through the Secure Husband process. We first start with noticing, and we notice the stories that we tell ourselves. Because the first step really is about curiosity, having an intent to learn. It's awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. So I want you to ask yourself this. What is the story I tell myself when things go wrong in my marriage? So when she pulls away emotionally or physically, if she's distant or dismissive or cold or she criticizes you, what do you make that mean about you? That's where your core belief kicks in, and it kicks in fast. Before you consciously think about it, that reptilian part of your brain, the amygdala, it's reacting. And now the hamster wheel starts, and the messages subconsciously are, I'm failing again. She doesn't love me because I'm not lovable or attractive or desirable. If she's upset, I must be the problem. I'll never be enough. But that's not truth. That's that old wound speaking. So I want you to be aware of it. Maybe start tracking it in a journal. Think about it in your moments of prayer and reflection. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Be mindful of it after you've had an argument or a shutdown. Maybe you withdrew or she withdrew. The important thing is to just bring it to the surface. Bring it from the subconscious to the conscious and notice it. And then once you notice it, just ask yourself, what did I just believe about myself? And is it actually true? See, this is where we start to shift things, moving from deep subconscious into the conscious. And that allows you to make a choice. See, now you can choose to approach these beliefs with compassion and not shame and judgment and beating yourself up. Because, yeah, you're going to be tempted to shame yourself when you notice them, because then you trigger more false core beliefs like, why am I so broken? Or I can't believe I still think this. Okay, just stop. Take a deep breath. You're not broken. You're just wounded. And that's a false belief that's coming to the surface. False. It's your brain's way of trying to make sense of pain. With the limited resources that you had when you were a child, you didn't know how to process this. These are big, scary emotions because you didn't choose that belief. You survived using it. But now you get to stop attacking yourself. So no more blaming, no more shaming, and just start getting curious. Because when you ask, where did that belief come from? What did I experience that made this feel true? What was I missing back then that I needed? That curiosity lets you choose to reclaim power because now you're no longer fused to the belief. You're exploring it. You're holding it up to the light. You're taking it out of the darkness, taking it out of shame and bringing it into thought. And that's where healing begins. And we always have to look inside because that belief didn't come from your adult self, your rational thinking brain. It came from that little boy inside of you who back when he was young, when he was 5 or 7 or 9 or whatever, didn't get what he needed emotionally. He felt unseen or scared or rejected or alone. And that little guy, in his heart, he made up a story to survive. If I was better, I would get affection. If I was perfect, they wouldn't leave. If I don't upset them, I'll be safe. If I stay quiet, I won't get yelled at, won't get hurt. If I just make everyone happy, I'll be loved. That boy doesn't need to be shamed. He needs to be seen. He needs to be loved. He needs to be held. He needs to hear the truth from you now that he didn't get back then. So find a quiet place every day and just sit down. Take a deep breath. Put your hand on your heart. Just sit quietly. Picture that little guy. Just picture you when you were young. Talk to him. Hey, buddy, I see you. I know you felt unloved back then, but that wasn't your fault. But you don't have to earn love anymore. You were always worthy. You may not have gotten it then, but I'm giving you it now. Now, this step might feel weird at first, but it's powerful. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know it is at the core of healing because you're becoming the safe father that your inner boy never had. And that's how you stop living out of fear and start leading from strength. Because right now, you don't trust yourself. That little boy inside of you doesn't trust the adult version of you. And so you have to override these false core beliefs. And this is the part of the secure husband process that some people just really aren't comfortable with. And it has to do with your belief system. If you have a strong faith in God, faith in spirit, higher self, universe, whatever your belief system is, that is your source of unconditional love, that is your source of absolute truth, of inherent worth. I say this all the time in these podcasts. You have to connect to that. That is something bigger than you because that is your source of truth. That is the source that overrides the false core beliefs. And you sit down in your prayer, your quiet reflection. You might journal through your higher power. And whatever that is, it's a conversation that you have where you reach out and you ask, am I lovable? Am I worthy? And the answer is yes. But you absolutely have to do this to overcome the thoughts that you have subconsciously in your brain. So when you do those things together, when you work with that inner boy and you reparent and you love him and you tell him how much he's worth and how much he's loved, and then you go to your divine guidance, that spiritual wisdom that you have that says absolutely yes, you are worthy. Yes, you are loved. Yes, you don't have to earn affection. You get affection because you are. Then you get to connect this inner belief to your outer behavior. And this is where you start acting from truth and not reacting from false core beliefs and those stories that you keep telling yourself. Because once you carry a belief like I'm not enough or love has to be earned, it's going to shape how you show up, especially in your marriage. That's what drives you to stay silent and avoid conflict, to over-explain yourself, to apologize for things that aren't your fault, to overfunction to prove your value, to chase affection, to feel worthy. You collapse when you're criticized. All of this, you're just thinking, well, that's just how I am. But that's not who you are. It's who you became to survive your beliefs. But when you spot the pattern and you pause, you bring it from the subconscious up to the conscious, asking yourself what belief is driving this behavior. Is that belief still true? Do I want to keep living from that story? When you pause and ask yourself those questions, you get to break the cycle. You get to break the loop. And here's the wonderful part. You don't have to wait for anyone else to validate your worth. You take radical responsibility for writing this new story. Not your wife, not your parents, not the world, not your boss. You get to write a new story and live from it. A story based in truth and not in a false core belief. So instead of saying, I'm not enough, you can tell yourself, yeah, I'm already enough. Instead of I have to earn love, you tell yourself love isn't earned, it's received. If I speak up, I'll be rejected. You get to tell yourself, I have something to say. My truth matters. And if it's rejected, I'll survive. But I'm speaking authentically. This isn't blind positivity. It's freedom. It's peace. It's liberation. Because when you start parenting your inner self and affirming your own value, then you can regulate your own emotions and stop outsourcing your worth. And life changes. Your marriage dynamic begins to shift. Not because she changes, but because you do. How you approach your career, how you approach parenting, how you approach friendships, all of these things now shift. And you get to become a man who lives from truth and not from lies. So every time that old belief shows up, you don't fight it. You don't try to stuff it down. I'm not going to think that. I'm not going to think that. No, you lean into it. You father it. You recognize it. You speak truth to it. And then you act from your secure self, not the wounded one. And this allows you to say, that belief, okay, that served me once when I was little, and I didn't know how to handle the world, but it doesn't lead me now as an adult. I know who I am. I don't need my wife to prove it or anyone else. My worth isn't negotiable, and I lead myself and others with love and not fear. I lead with truth and not shame. That new story becomes your new nervous system. And from there, you find yourself not walking on eggshells anymore, or trying to control how others see you, or collapsing in conflict. Now you know who you are. You're a secure husband. Your false core beliefs were never the truth. It was just the story that you wrote as a kid trying to make sense of pain. But now, you're a man, and you're safe. You get to tell a new story from strength and not fear. And when you do, you don't just heal yourself, you change the whole atmosphere of your marriage and your family and your work. You show up different. You love differently, you lead differently, and you stop needing your wife or anyone else to make you feel worthy because you already know that you are. And that's the truth. You don't have to believe these false stories anymore. Hey, I hope this podcast was helpful for you. Hit that subscribe button for more episodes and leave me a review. Listenership is blowing up, but you can help other men find this podcast and heal. And if you need help getting unstuck, visit securehusband.com and set up a free consultation with me. I'll see you again on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.